Today I'm going to talk about augmenting the human edge, the AI sales revolution. And before I get started, what I'm really going to talk about is I'm going to touch on sales, but I'm also going to talk about kind of the common theme where it doesn't pertain to just sales and AI, the common theme that's been going on throughout the event with simplicity, keeping things simple. Because one of the biggest things about AI, I think, and what I learned for myself, because I'm going to tell you my journey on getting into AI, even though I was already part of the company, I wasn't using it, right? And how I overcomplicated it and how we, with the sales company alone, solved so many major issues with implementing AI, but keeping it simple. Some of the biggest myths when it comes to salespeople and sales companies is that AI is going to replace sales. It's going to replace salespeople. It's going to replace management. We're not going to need any of it, right? That's one of the things I have to debunk when I do consulting for companies, right? A lot of companies, especially with telemarketing floors, that implementing simple AI tools isn't here to replace you, okay? It's literally here to refine what you're doing, right? Cutting out the friction. One of the points I made up there was, everybody's talking about AI, but only a few understand it. The main point on this slide, guys, is that even fewer people around the country really know how to monetize it. Really monetize it. You can play with it, you can do different things with it. It's all great, but how are you really going to make money with it? Well, some of the examples I'm going to give you today are exactly what I have done, what my partners have done with the sales company to actually turn it into dollars. And it doesn't have anything to do with AI for business. It's actually working in one of our businesses. But before I do that, let me go ahead and give you my journey so far with AI. Going back about 3 years ago, I had a conversation with Brian Hansen when he first started digging into AI. And we were in our office. I'll never forget where it was. It was right outside his office door, right next to our conference room. And he said, man, I've been digging into this AI stuff, and I think I see a path for us. But it's really, really going to take me some time. I have to dig in, and I have to kind of obsess about it. But I see a path, and I think there's something there. And he's like, but we got all these calls, we got all this going on. And I simply said, and it was like in one ear, out the other with me at that time. And I was like, yeah, man, don't worry about it. I got the sales side of things, running the sales company, the clients. Domar's got the show and the real estate side. Francis has got agency and the educational part of everything. Man, we got to do what you have to do. I just thought it was really, really words of encouragement, but he really meant it. And he said, I'm going to have to dig in. And what that means with Brian, dig in means completely obsess about it and, and lock himself away literally in his house. I barely saw the guy. He was present in our companies. He was on the meetings. He was helping us. But every time we talked, a little bit more about AI, a little bit more about AI. And I think I should better describe it as Brian obsessing is kind of like, he was just up here. You saw him, he's like, he's like the best, like life-size gummy bear. You know what I'm saying? When, when he smiles, you just want to kind of squeeze him, he's a very lovable guy. And I squeeze him every now and then, that's just for my own personal pleasure. But and in reality, when it comes to his obsession, and a better word for it would be passion, is he's literally a mad scientist. And as he started sending the group one-off texts here and there, as he got, the phone calls, hey, I just discovered this other tool and different things like that, it just got more and it got more and it got more. And the whole time I'm staying in my lane. I got the sales company ruling the world. We're doing all this great stuff. Until one day when I realized it was a problem or a real force to become a force multiplier for us. Is I was on the phone. He called me one day. We hadn't talked in a while, just, one-on-one. And he starts telling me about this tool he discovered and all these different things. And he's like, man, I just, and I'm pacing around my house kind of like I do on the phone. And And he's like, man, and dude, I learned this thing in 5 minutes and I built it in like 2 minutes. And it's like a picture of me. And I have a German army helmet on. I'm riding a unicorn. I got combat boots on. And here's the kicker. Here's the kicker. Me and the unicorn have a frappuccino. We both have a frappuccino. And the whole time I'm like, that's great, man. That's awesome. And again, I'm in year one out, in one ear out the other, completely having, I'm like, okay, man, I'm excited. I don't know why, but I'm excited. But he was super, super into it. And he's like, all right, Rich, man, I appreciate it, but I gotta go. I'll talk to you later. Boom, he hangs up the phone. My wife is my wife was sitting on the couch and she was like, how'd that go? Because I was like, oh, that's awesome. That's great. That's all she heard. And I was like, I have no idea. I was like, but I think he wants the company to get some unicorns or something. It's something like that. And that was actually kind of like a real conversation, but that's how much of understanding of AI I had at that time. Well, it came a time where we started doing the smaller events, and Brian's like, that one day he was like, dude, I got it. We have a platform, we have a launching pad. Let's go. And as we started doing the smaller events, we had some road bumps, learning curves and different things as you do when you launch something new. But as we saw that we had something real, something that we could really bring to the public, the community, or the community, it it was time for, like, Francis had already kind of made the shift and was spearheading it with Brian, and we had talked, and it was, hey man, it's time to bring you and Dolmar over because here's the thing, we have something that we think is going to be super special, and we got it to a certain point, but if we're going to take it to the next level and beyond and be a true force multiplier in this industry, it's going to take all of us. And that was me dialing back the sales company. We had third party clients, doing tons of lead conversions, our own in-house brands. And it was like, hey, we got to wind down the sales side of things on the client end. Dolmar's got to focus more, winding down, his part of the show and stuff like that. And, so I got to a point where I was like, okay, so we had kind of like a talk one day, and I realized how much and how far behind I was. But now I'm supposed to add value to what we're doing. So at first, and this was a mistake I actually made, was I thought that my job was to go in and learn everything about AI, true story, as quickly as I could. And I'm actually really good at that. I can process information, I can blah, 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 blah. Well, what I found was I was like, okay, well, let me start learning it. And I started with like different sales tools and CRMs. And then I got into some of the fun stuff, but I kept it for myself. I didn't get into the unicorn building side. I kept it more towards the business side, and like, look, what are these tools? And I can't say I started getting obsessed, but I started like, oh my God, man, these things are amazing. This is amazing. This is amazing. And after about 2.5 months, seriously, of digging in, and I carved out a couple hours a day to learn these things. And it wasn't that I learned them truly. It was just I had a lot of information. And I shared this the other night with the A3 mastermind group when I thought that, this is some of the things I should talk about. But it was literally like I was standing there and I was like, this is amazing. And I'd really looked at what I knew, which was very little. I just had a bunch of information. I just was like, I don't know what to do with this stuff. And so what I did was I took a step back and I said, well, Rich, you're a business owner. How could you use AI in what you do? And it forced me to look at the problems that we were having in our own company. Okay. And some of those problems before AI, the biggest ones was time wasted on unqualified prospects. It was talking too much, the sales reps talking too much, reps skipping key steps in our framework, which is hugely, hugely important because we utilize a unique sales methodology that we've developed over the last couple of decades, that's very, very powerful. So skipping around, and whether it's out of desperation or frustration, it ruins the entire framework and it makes it an uphill battle to close individuals. Um, and our leadership, myself included, we are stuck on reviewing hours of calls and chasing mistakes. Because one of the things is you got a pipeline that's 100%, and at the end of the month, you only close 55 of it. What happened to the other 45%? That forces us to review calls. And this is like We're making stabs in the dark when I say review calls. Are random calls, trying to find mistakes out of calls that are anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour. Terribly time consuming, and we're behind the 8 ball because you don't even realize you're behind until it's halfway through the month and your sales aren't closing or your deals aren't closing. Uphill battle, frustration. Then we got to pinpoint it, whether it's a team issue, whether it's an individual issue. Then we got to train to those mistakes. Then we got to reinforce the training to make sure it's being upheld. Again, reviewing calls, and that takes us away from doing what we do best: leading our team, building a great culture, driving revenue, keeping that, inspiring our team, right? And totally ineffective. And a term I used the other night was, it was like success. And guys, believe me, we're talking about, we generate, even with those issues, millions and millions and millions of dollars, but we still had these issues, right? No CRM could solve them. It was old school listening to calls, live listening to calls, and then training to those mistakes. The whole bit's completely frustrating, but it was like success with the handbrake on. Seriously. We're 100 miles an hour, but we weren't going as fast as we could, and we weren't going to the places we could because we still had these setbacks. Now, us back then, we thought that was just part of the business because it's always been a part of the business, especially, and God, we're talking about mostly phone sales here, okay? And high ticket, programs, tens of thousands of dollars. And, but it was just part of the game, right? But I was like, okay, so here's what I'm gonna do. I know AI now. I can solve these issues. So what I did, I took all the issues that we were having, I prioritized them in our number one, and then down my list I went. And I can solve this issue with this. I can solve this issue with that. I can solve this issue with that. And the next thing I knew, I had a whole pile of garbage again for 10 different issues, one thing for 10 different issues. And I was like, okay, I'm down the same rabbit hole. I got excited, and then I realized, and I don't know if Mike is in the room. Mike's our sales director. I've been working with him for a very, very, very long time. And, I'm like, Mike, we got to do this. We got to do that. So I need you to learn this. I need you to implement it right now, blah, blah, blah. Mike's, I can be pretty intense at times. I've been told, right? But Mike's like pulling out the bottle of Quaaludes and a bottle of Fireball. He's like, Rich, please, please. And so I'm like, okay, so, I don't want to add to Mike's substance abuse. So I'm like, okay, seriously, let me take a step back again. Now, guys, this is why we're building this. We're already doing virtual events and everything. So, so I thought, and again, I have no ego in what I do, right? If I need help, I don't care who it is that I can get help from. If I need direction, and I can always call any of my business partners any time of day and get that advice, get that direction if I'm stuck. So I was like, okay, well, I'll call Brian. And then I thought, well, I don't know if I want to call Brian because I'm pretty sure that he's super busy, number one. And he would take the time for me, but I'm pretty sure we're going to have a conversation about how he made a meme of a marmot in a banana costume eating an ice cream cone. And I can't go back there. I can't. True story of why I did not. And so what I did was, there's a very, 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 very sharp individual in our company named Yens Heitman. And I'm like, let me just message Yens. And, Yens works, well, I consider it working with us, but, he works for us, but he is light years ahead of me, even still with AI, as much as I actually know now. And he agreed to, he's like, absolutely, man, let's just jump on a Zoom. It was like, we got on a Zoom call like 5:30 in the morning, and I think we carved out 30 minutes, and we spent about an hour and a half. I said, here's what I'm trying to learn about AI. I'm trying to learn how I could even implement it. Because I wasn't, initially, we weren't looking to solve these problems. I just looked at it as, from the outside in, if I was trying to solve these problems in my own business. And this is where, and I said, I know about this, I know about that, I know about this, but here's our main issues. And through that conversation, Jens had already developed these prompts, right? That were basically built around sales analytics and sales analyzing. And so we went through them, and he gave me a demonstration, and I was like, holy crap, right? That's amazing, right? And so we ran through it a couple of times, and there was a couple of follow-up texts to make sure I understood what was going on. This is number one, the power of prompting. But from that conversation, this is the important part. From that conversation, we did something very, very simple to solve a very complex thing. And it was one thing. It was out of the three prompts, there was one particular prompt that I took. I tweaked it a little bit to our sales framework of what we look for and everything. And we used ChatGPT. And everybody in the world knows about ChatGPT. Everybody's played with it, and I used it at that time, but I used it to see if time travel was real and, stupid things like, yeah, I it's still on my little sidebar thing. But 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 so what we did is we took that prompt and we called it um but this is where I had the moment of clarity. It's like, okay, the biggest thing is we did not need more tech. We needed clarity. We needed to see what was truly happening in our company. But not only was this prompt powerful to solve the top priority in our company, this thing literally solved four, maybe five different issues for us. This prompt is geared towards our framework. So the sales closing percentage, it measured our talk ratios. We want our sales staff talking 40% of the time or less. We want our customers talking 60% or more of the time. Okay. And we always have said that. And we always gauged it by listening to calls of how much the salesperson was talking versus the customer. And we came up with that percentage kind of generically, but this actually gave it some substance. Because now we said, because when we would upload, our CRM automatically simultaneously transcribes the calls as it records it. So the way we had to do it was, it's on autopilot now, but the way we originally did it was, it goes to like I think a Google Doc that zaps to ChatGPT. Mike's the one who set all that stuff up. I had nothing to do with it. But anyways, um, it it measures the ratio of talk time. It tells us the closing probability on a scale of, which I'm going to cover on the next slide, 0 to 100 of closing probability, right? It gives us a summary of the actual call and gives feedback on anything that made it a qualified prospect to move to our pipeline, and the different things based on our framework that it missed and why it graded the call, why it did. And we have yet to get one that's 100%, but I can tell you that this one simple prompt, this one simple thing solved the impact that it had, which I'm going to share. And this is a point that I'll make later. It was ChatGPT and a prompt. And all the challenges that I just listed, it solved, and it gave us real-time information. This is my own case study of how we implemented it and what it did. So our prompt grades it from 0 to 100% using our sales framework. Anything that is 80% or higher goes on our pipeline report. Anything that is less goes on a different report. Okay. So we don't even see it, right? It's not on our pipeline. Number one, it saves us so much on our pipeline management. And that doesn't mean that the salespeople they're just focusing on the 80%. They don't see that 80%. We do. We see everything that they focus on from 79% and under. And what we found is that our wheelhouse is in about the 60% range and or 65% range to 79% of money that we leave on the table. And it is a lot of deals. And it's where everything that's like typically 50 under that 60% mark is a pretty bad call. And a lot of time it's still because the salesperson is talking too much. There's a lot of unqualified prospects when it comes to, not being, able to afford it and all the different things. But what we found is the 65% range to 79% was gold. Because see what this prompt does, it gives us real-time information. Anytime we want to see this report, we can see what's happening on each call. We can see what the close or what the probability percentages are. We can see every single rep, every single deal that's under that 80% threshold. We can take a snapshot of that summary. And now, even without listening to the calls, we know that there's one or two things that they probably missed of why this deal is under 80%. Now we can give real direction, right? We can give direction in real time. We can solve small issues or small problems before they become issues, before they develop into bad habits, before those bad habits develop into frustration and desperation of not closing deals and ultimately burnout for our salespeople. Right? We're saving time because I'm not listening to endless calls. You know what I'm doing? I'm going to go and I'm going to say, I need to hear these two calls. Bring the salesperson in my office. We're going to do a live call calibration. I'm going to have them grade their own call, and then I'm going to give them real time direction. And I know exactly what to follow up on. And the other part of that is telling them, do not follow up on this call. Do not follow up on this person. This person said at the beginning, this is why they're not going to buy. This is a 50% deal. We can give direction like that because every single one from 0 to 100 in their mind is still on their pipeline. And it would be on our pipeline report if we weren't able to gauge it. And the thing is that because we know we have an 80% probability, that is not where we spend our time. Well, let's focus on these because they're 80% or higher, right? No, these are the ones that we just softly finesse through the sales process because they have an 80% chance or more to close. We spend our time piecing together the missing pieces of this other 14 to around 19%. That's where the true profit is. That's where our gravy is. And that's the money we were leaving on the table every single month. Every single month. 45, we were closing, and to give you some context there, we were closing about a 55% conversion rate. 55%. That means 45% of everything on our pipeline was falling out every single month. This helps us prevent that. Okay. Now, I want to touch on a little bit of, so I can add some sales into this, right? The 60-40% rule for us is highly important. And my top reps, literally my top reps have a talk percentage time of 30% or less, right? The more mediocre ones, they're still successful. They still range in that literally 40 to 42% talk rate. And I have had pushback on this for years, right? I'm gonna give you an example of a real situation. And you know, I have a talk or I have a presentation where I talk a lot about leadership, and I think some of our original A3 members heard it in our first event. I don't have the time to go. Well, actually, our first event I went over by about an hour. They gave me 30 minutes. I went for like, this is a true story. Went for an hour and a half. You guys that were there remember that. Um, but I have very unique. I can't say unique, but I have very strong leadership philosophies and everything. And there was a company that I was working for before we started Real Advisors. They brought me in to change the culture and get their sales floor running where it needed to be. They were doing like less than $1 million a year, blah, blah, blah. And as you know, I'm the new guy coming in, and most of these guys had been there for years. And my biggest challenge was pushback. And I didn't do anything for about the first two and a half months. Okay. I didn't change anything. I just observed. I listened to literally probably hundreds of calls. And I'm like, man, this is just, bad. I gave advice where I thought would be effective, but my job wasn't to come in and just change things. My job was really to come in and really understand what needed to be changed. Long story short, before I get down a rabbit hole with it, when the first day that I actually said, okay, this needs to change, and unfortunately, because I don't lead by like an iron fist or anything, but unfortunately, there are times when you have to prove a point and you have to make an example. And the 6 guys that were there, I was bringing in new people. They weren't on board with the old school guys were not on board with, hey man, this is what we need to be doing. When I started kind of implementing some training and stuff like that, got a ton of pushback, a lot of sarcasm. And truthfully, the reason this company brought me in, because they knew I wasn't going to put up with anything. They knew my wife. That's how they got a hold of me to see if I had any interest in doing this. And but they had run a bunch of sales directors out of there before me. They lasted maybe 6 months. And so, and plus I hadn't talked about any of my expertise or anything like that. I just said there's a better way to do what we're doing. And so when I started really pushing to implement it, I was getting pushback, pushback, pushback. So I took the 6 guys when I was like ready, and I took them downstairs into the conference room for a sales training. And I did not know who the example was going to be. And I started, and it was literally about, because these guys would get on the phone and they would just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. And I'm like, you guys are talking too much. And so, I get down there, I'm like, listen, guys, we got to start listening more. And here's why. And going through some of my philosophies, right? And the reason why, and this is how you truly build rapport. It's not about talking. It's not about talking about basketball and liking fishing and all these things that, these commonalities that you guys think, you know, resonate with these individuals. It's not. It's about care and interest. It's about letting them know that you care about what they're saying after you ask them a question. And so this one gentleman, his name was Jeff. I won't use his last name. His name was Jeff. He scoffs in the middle of this, right? Now I could go a lot deeper in why that's important to stay quiet as long as you can as they're talking, but he scoffs at it. And I kind of look at him. I was like, "What's up, man?" I was being nice at first. I was like, "What's up, man?" And he was like, and I saw his head. He did this thing when he was, he'd do his head like this is one of those guys. Rich, I know you're just, and he was such a, yeah, he, he, I might slip here in a minute, but he was like Eddie Haskell magnified by like a million. Okay. But he was like, I know you're trying to help. And, he's shaking his head on the other side of the conference table. He's like, but look, we've been doing this a long time, man. I've been here for 10 years. I can't do his voice. It's so very whiny, high pitched. But I've been here for 10 years. I know you're trying to help, but I mean, we've been doing this for a long time. And he's like, honestly, Rich, I want to help you. This is what he told me. I want to help you. And I said, okay. He's like, look, I got over 200 rebuttals that I use on people to close deals. I was like, really? Over 200? He goes, yeah, I've been doing this for years, man. I know exactly what to say. Red flag. I know exactly I know exactly what to say to these people, right? I know exactly how to close them, and I have over 200 rebuttals. I'm just telling you, we should probably sit down. We'll go over them. Blah blah blah. This is legit, and I said, okay. I said, I was like, so I'll tell you what. Give me your best rebuttal for. I want to think about it. Give me your best rebuttal. And he took 2 seconds, and he was like, and he started it just like this. Okay, John, you want to think about it? Let me ask you a question. And my brain slowly started to melt. Okay. And he goes on this little thing about wanting to think about it. It was kind of hard nosed. It didn't really make sense. You know what I mean? It had no relevancy to I want to think about it. And and it was more of a pressure tactic that had nothing to do with whatever concern, because if somebody tells you to want to think about it, there's a level of uncertainty there. You miss something, right? But I let him finish, and I sat there for a minute, and I'm pretty sure my face was pretty red at the time. And I was like, okay. I was like, that was interesting. I was like, I do have a question for you on that. I do have a question. Um, but first, before I ask that question, and this is where I flipped the switch on him. Okay. I was like, first of all, I want to think about it is not an objection. You think it is, but it's not. It's a stall tactic, meaning that you miss something. Okay. And you want to think about it. And if you have, how many objections or how many rebuttals do you have for that? He was like, a lot. For I want to think about it. Okay. Well, you keep thinking that's an objection. That's okay. I said, but I got a question for you. My question is, having over 200 rebuttals is pretty impressive. My question is, why do you get that many objections? Now, a smart person would have paused right there. Not Jeff. Jeff immediately was trying to tell me the sales game. Rich, it's a sales game. The customers, they're always going to have objections. They're always going to have objections. You're telling me not to talk. I need to talk. I have to talk. That's what salespeople do. We talk. And you're gonna get objections, and you need to be ready with rebuttals. And you're trying to tell us we don't need to be talking as much, and like you got a better way of closing, blah blah blah. Completely ignoring the question of why do you get that many objections? So that's where I was like, okay, this is my time, right? My time to shine. So I was like, let me help you because he said it sarcastically, which I didn't appreciate. And I rarely take this stance. Sometimes it's important, especially where I was with that company at the time. Um, but I was like, let me help you understand, Jeff, why you have 200 rebuttals and you get that many objections because you don't listen to a word the customer says. And I had listened to hundreds of calls. I was like, you constantly interrupt. You're not even really qualifying them. You're shoving information down their throat and you think it's bringing value to the customer. All you're doing is loosely teaching what you're trying to sell them, and it has no impact. You completely have no trust with these individuals. You have no idea what you're doing on the phone. The reason you get objections is because you don't care. You're after the commission. Every salesperson in the world should be after commission, but to the value of the customer. You bring no value in what you do. And the reason you're getting these objections is because they are not sure that they want to buy. They do not trust you. And the ones that you do close either have a credit card in hand. They either have a credit card in hand or you force something down their throat. And then I stopped and I said, everybody in this room right now, if you think your job is to talk people into something they don't want to do, I need you to get up and leave right now. That is not our job. Our job is to listen. Our job is to show empathy and whatever pain point or motivation. Our job is to make sure that our products align with what they need, that they're going to be able to meet and exceed their goals, right? Not to cram something down their throat, because there's that hard style of closing that's still out there. You want objections. You want to talk them into it, because a lot of salespeople, unfortunately, even these days, think that selling somebody, and they used to use the word, man, I'm selling this dude. I sold this dude. You should never have to sell anything. Bring value to the customer for whatever your product has, and they're going to want to buy it. I don't have time to get into our methodologies in this, because it would take me days, seriously. But you should never run into any objections at the end of your call. You should never. The only thing you should do, if they actually have concerns, they're going to be in forms of buying questions, and they're going to ask you these questions that they have concerns about because they want you to tell them it's okay. They want there to be a solution to their concern. And if you ever get an objection on price, go work at Walmart, man. Seriously, because that is the least thing any customer should ever be worried about. They should understand the value and the ROI and what you're offering them based on their need. And that was my Jeff story, one of my Jeff stories. I got more. This is, but that was one of my Jeff stories. But that's why it's important. So there's a little bit about my philosophy on sales, and more importantly, myself and Mike and the other leaders in our company got to focus back on our culture and coaching our staff, right? This is going back to the one thing, right? The one simple thing that solved all these issues. One prompt, ChatGPT. Real quick, leadership shift. Weak leaders get exposed, strong leaders get amplified. This is the biggest takeaway from this slide. I won't go into a deep thing on this, but implementing systems like this, and when I've consulted with companies to talk, because anytime I do anything, I always start with their leadership. Unless they're, sometimes I go straight to sales just to help, but I always look at their leadership. And when you implement AI, simple AI, the pushback that I've always gotten is from sales managers or assistant sales managers, Because when you implement something like we did that solves all these issues and now it frees up time for you to invest in your team, they don't know what to do because they're used to coming in probably not before their team, maybe right before. They don't greet their team as they come in. They're checking their fantasy football stats from the weekend, right? They're scrolling through TikTok or watching ESPN, and they expect their team to get on the phone, right? Individuals like that, when you implement these things, it frees up time. Because see, before when you had all this mess, you can hide easily, and the only time you spring into action is when the higher ups come down to say what's going on with sales. And the first thing you do is blame the salesperson. And the worst part about this is these individuals know their bad habits and they do them anyways. And then they'll go out and they'll tell the higher ups, well, the salespeople this, the salespeople that, don't worry, I'll get on them. I've been working with them, but yeah, I'll take care of it. They spring into action. It's all about negativity. There's nothing good about what he's saying. He's going to snap on the salespeople and he's going to turn it in to this is your problem. You guys got to do better, blah, 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 blah. And he's back into his office. Dude, it, what's the best word? It irks me, if I can say that, to, I can't even explain, but that's one of the benefits of using just a simple system like this because it'll expose that. Why aren't the numbers going up? You're not spending time reviewing calls anymore. You're not spending time running around in an uphill battle. You have it right in front of you. And most of the time it's because they don't know what to do. They don't know how to get through to their team. They don't know how to inspire them. They don't know how to drive them. And more importantly, they don't know how to drive them when the chips are down. Because one of the reasons you want to always invest everything you can into your team is not when things are great. It's so when the stuff hits the fan, you have some substance and you can ask them to go the extra limit. But I think the last time I spoke, I talked a little bit about that on my current team of how deep they have dug for us at times. And it's not because we're making all this money and everything's great. It's because they care. Our vision is aligned as a company and as our staff. And when the shit does hit the fan, excuse my language, they are in it, right? And especially to do their part. All right. Oh, wrong button. All right. Simplicity. Now this is to where this is for everybody in the room. Simplicity wins, right? AI didn't replace us as a team, us. It revealed us. It revealed our mistakes. It revealed everything we were doing good, and it helped us pinpoint what we needed to get better. Simple AI, fast adoption equals big results. The experienced people that have been with us for a while, the newbies that are in the class, whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, getting into AI, implementing it, your current business owner, it doesn't matter what level you're on. Simple does not mean small. Simple means scalable. We solved our issues with one simple thing with AI. ChatGPT and a prompt. Now, that's not where we're at with AI as a company, but that's when all the garbage that I was doing and researching, hitting that one simple thing, it opened my eyes to this is just like our sales process now. AI is simple. We got to keep it simple because I could do so many fancy things that would be super complicated, right? It'd be fancy, but complicated, right? So when we talk about simple, we mean it. Dig into that one thing. For us, it was that one thing that helped us solve so many different problems. Again, real quick, with prospecting, smarter targeting, more right party contacts that we use AI for now, data-driven feedback. I'm actually giving real direction in real time on something that's happening right now. I'm not searching for it, so that if I see that Justin, he is consistently under 50% on his last 3-4 calls, there's a problem there. What's going on? I can identify it quickly and again, solve those issues before they become problems, before they become bad habits. Real-time visibility. I know exactly what's on our pipeline, what's not. And I know the deals that we need to focus on that are on our wheelhouse that are going to have impact. There's missing one or two, typically one or two, sometimes three things that we can have the salesperson go back to the customer to follow up on. And a lot of those deals, when we put them back through that same system, go over that 80% threshold. It basically touches every part of our process, not to take over, but to enhance what we're doing. Keep it simple but powerful. Um, you don't need complex AI to win. Start with one workflow: simplicity, adoption, momentum. And again, you've heard them say this, or them. You've heard my partners say this a few times. Don't chase the new and shiny with AI. Start small, win fast, then scale. That's exactly what we did in our own company, and particularly with our sales company. Implementation roadmap: identify it, your number one pain point, prioritize them, pilot one AI tool, and then train, and then execute. Very simple. Very simple. I'd love to talk more about that, but don't have time. I'm actually a little bit over, almost 1 minute. Okay. And that's why it's important, guys, that I say keep it simple. Find the one thing, because it's a journey that I'm still taking. As much as I do know about AI and all the high speed stuff, nothing has ever been as powerful as keeping it simple on that first one thing. And the more you research AI and the more you get this, right? Like I had this, I don't know what to do with this stuff. You know what I mean? You're going to be and I heard it actually in our mastery class this morning. Somebody said, I got my website up, I hit a roadblock. I got something else set up, I hit a roadblock, right? You're going to continue to run into those things if you don't nail down what the most important things for you to focus on. That's what I'm so excited actually about our mastery program, is that we're going to force you to focus on the most important thing, accomplish it first, and then move on. Because if you get burnout, if you keep spinning your wheels and give up on the AI side of what you're doing, especially if you're still aspiring to be a business owner, that's why I have that quote up here that I said, or I think I said this at our last event, but it's: the next generation of leaders won't be replaced by AI, but it will be replaced by those who use it. Use it wisely, find the one thing, take action.
That's a wrap for this episode of the AI for Business podcast. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit subscribe and pass it along to a friend or colleague. We appreciate you being here, and we'll catch you in the next one.